I was re-listening to one of Jocko's books. It was the Leadership Strategy and Tactics, and he was talking about. He talks about a lot of cool stuff in that book, but one thing that I wanted to talk about today was he was talking about detaching, and so if you read any of his books, he goes through like stories from when he was in the military. And so this particular story about when he was learning about detaching from the situation so you can kind of see things a little better. I think he was on a training mission, and he said that everybody on the team was looking down their rifles and like scanning for targets and shit. And even the leader of the platoon, or I don't know what it was, even the leader, the person in charge, was also doing that. So everybody had this field of view that was pretty narrow, and they were all scanning for targets, and Jocko in his head was waiting for an order. So he was watching everybody scan for targets and waiting for an order to come in, and the order didn't come. He waited a little longer, the order didn't come. So long story short, he ended up putting his rifle in high port, which my understanding is like when you point the barrel up to the sky so it's in a safe direction, and then doing that, and I think he said he took a step back, like a physical step back, so he could really see everything that was going on. And so no longer does he have that really narrow field of view. Now he has a full, 360 or 180 or whatever he was looking at. He had a much better view of the situation, and he saw pretty clearly what call needed to happen, so he made the call. And what he learned from that was sometimes you have to detach from the situation in order to really be able to see what's going on. And so when I was listening to that, and I'm thinking about it on the level of kind of talking about this information with my team, because I'm trying to bring up some new leaders, and I think the ability to detach and look at the whole situation is a vital skill, and it's something that I forget to practice all the time. And so I remembered a scenario pretty much like most of this year. I failed to detach, and I caused myself a lot more stress than I would have had I kind of had that top of mind and been able to do that. So one of the examples is so I think it was towards the beginning of the year I started. I don't know how much detail I should get into with this. So I was looking at profits, and a lot of the profits was what we had determined was we're putting too much into marketing. The percentage of our income was too high of a percentage was going towards marketing. And I believe in marketing, and I believe in the power of it, but I think some of the strategies we were using were ineffective, or not as effective as they should have been. So it was sort of eating up the profits. So I was implementing some strategies where I was reducing the ad spend and trying to make up for that in other areas. And so we're incrementally reducing the ad spend, and I'm trying to do other things. So we're testing, and unless you hit the thing right the very first time, which is rare, you're gonna have like some kind of grace period or some kind of lull or something in sales where you're taking marketing spend away, and so less money's coming in. So even though I was like completely aware that that's what I was doing, I still was like super focused on the daily sales and those numbers going down. And then I kept kind of doing what I was doing, and the numbers got down to where it was like, it was not going to be sustainable moving forward. So I was really starting to panic. And because I was so focused on that one thing, I mean, obviously I was focused on other things, trying to come up with new strategies and everything, but I had so much focus on the fact that the numbers were going down it was almost as if I forgot that the numbers were going down as a result of an action that I was taking. So my mind was going into all these different places, like, oh shit, what if, like, you know, something's happening and you know, this bad economy is starting to catch up to us, or you know, maybe I made a bad move somewhere else. Like, not thinking about the marketing ad spend going down, which would make perfect sense that, you know, less money would come in as you're trying to figure things out. So I spent a good part of the year super stressed out and really panicking about, you know, the business, because we weren't really bringing in enough at the rate that we were going. So I was like really worried, you know. And then, you know, I made some moves and figured some shit out, and then now we're you know, even though the marketing spend has been reduced, we're making more than we ever have. So like, I figured some shit out. And so by figuring some shit out, my mind, like, I'm not going to take credit and say that I purposefully detached, because that's not what happened. What happened was I was testing things, and something that I tested worked, which led to some other things working, and so on and so forth, and ended up kind of getting some things figured out. So then the sales were back, not only back to where I wanted them, but they were much higher. So Jesus Christ, this turn is the worst. So my stress levels went down because the problem that I was focusing on was no longer the problem, you know. And so I inadvertently detached and realized, I was like, I've been stressing about this whole time, and I was stressing about the wrong shit. Like, I was sitting here worried that all these other outside circumstances were happening, and that's why the sales went down. But it was my own actions of intentionally reducing that ad spend, which was what resulted in that. So I could have saved myself so much stress had I just really thought about this detach and really look at what's going on, and started really running numbers like what I'm doing now. So like, I have like ways of tracking and seeing like how much, I don't know, I'm getting too in the weeds here, but I just have a much better way of looking and analytically seeing, like, this is how much is going out, this is how much is coming in, this is working, this is not working, and things like that. Now I'm more detached and am able to see the whole big picture. And so then another thing, like, just in my overall life, just like my mental health and stuff, I've also kind of felt like I've been like sort of operating at a lower frequency than I want to be, you know. Like, I'm more unhappy and more stressed out. I signed up for stress. I'm not saying stress is bad. It's just, you know, it's kind of part of the game in some way. But I felt like, you know, there was just a lot more than should have been happening in terms of just my own mental state. So it's real easy to like look outside of yourself and be like, oh, well, you know, the economy is fucked up, like the world is just kind of weird, at least our country is super weird right now. There's just a lot of like strange stuff happening that I don't really quite understand, and you know, and then now we're in an election kind of cycle, so like everybody's fucking acting like weirdos, and I don't know if weird is the right word, but just, you know, there's like a heightened fucking fuckery going on. I don't know how I want to explain it. I don't want to get too far into all this shit, but it was it's easy to look outside of you and be like, this is all happening, and that's why I'm stressed out, or that's why my frequency is not as high as I want it to be. But that's not I don't find that to be a reasonable thing, because no matter what's happening around you, it doesn't mean you have to allow that to change your mindset and to change the way that you feel, or affect your mental health. It doesn't have to. And you can look to lots of different people, like Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp, and he was able to maintain the mindset that he wanted to have. Like, obviously he was suffering and he saw all this stuff happening, but you know, he's the guy that has that phrase, between stimulus and response lies, what is it? Shit. Between stimulus and response lies a space, and within that space is your ability to respond, or something along those lines. But basically what it means is, like, something happens, and in his case, all this crazy shit is happening because he's in a concentration camp. He's seeing people dying all around him. That's the stimulus. And then that space between that stimulus and his response, that's where his freedom is. He gets to decide how that's going to affect him. And I can't think of a much worse existence than to be in that, you know? And somebody like Epictetus, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, and talks about things like, you know, things that are beyond your control don't have the ability to affect, like, how you think and your freedom inside your own mind. And he was a slave during all of that most of the time, or not, I don't know how long he was a slave for, but he was a slave from when, I think it was from when he was a kid until he was quite a bit older. I wish I should know this, but either way, he was able to maintain these Stoic Stoic virtues while being a slave. So what that tells me is that, you know, you could be in this terrible situation, and it doesn't necessarily mean it has to affect what's going on in your own mind. Like, obviously there's certain things, you know, that are happening, like you could physically be detained or beaten or all these kind of things, but the way that these guys who were going through some horrible things were talking about it is like, you know, those things don't have the power to affect my mind. That's under my control. And so when I'm sitting here worried about my own shit, which is obviously nowhere near in the same fucking universe as the shit that those guys were going through, I was finding it easy to put it on outside circumstances, and I took the time to detach and think, like, well, what am I doing that's potentially causing this lower frequency that I don't want to be in? And it was pretty easy to see that it was like I wasn't doing all of the things that I know help me be at a higher frequency, and like that's taking care of your mind, body, and your spirit, or your soul, or whatever you believe in. And so what are those things that I used to do that I'm no longer doing? And it's three things. Well, not no longer, but not doing them with the consistency that I think I should be. So the three things are reading, meditating, and working out. And then, you know, there's other stuff that goes along with it, like eating well and, you know, doing what I need to do at my business and stuff like that. But so I made a commitment that every day I'm going to read 10 pages, I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes, and I'm going to do some kind of intense workout for at least 15 minutes. And I know 15 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, and it isn't, but I am more looking at, and 10 minutes of meditation isn't a lot either, but I'm looking at gaining these habits again. So I'm not going to go, okay, I only really read 10 pages a day. I think that's perfectly fine. So that's not going to change, but I would prefer to meditate for 20 to 30 minutes, and I'd prefer to work out maybe a little bit longer. But I just want to get those habits going again. And so I started doing that, and I started putting that on my power list as 3 items that go on there every day. I have to do these 3 things. These are the 3 things I have to do. And as soon as I started doing that with some regularity, I started feeling better, because even though the effects of those actions maybe take some time to really settle in, the fact that I was back on track with the things that I know I need to do to help, that was enough to really start to clear up a lot of my issues in my head that I was having. So I guess the overall topic of the conversation here is, you know, anything that's going on in your life, in your business, at work, or whatever, if you take the time to detach and step back and look at everything and really look at like what are you doing that's causing any of this stuff, even if it is totally outside of your control, you know, what's your part? Instead of like blaming on other shit, if you detach and really look at what your part is, there's likely a lot of different moves you can make that are gonna at least start getting you in a better path. So yeah, that's it. All right, I'm at work, I gotta go. I will see you next time. All right.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And yeah, stay up.